You are doing it again, texting first, planning the date, asking when she is free, trying to find the right balance between interested and desperate. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there is this question you can't shake. Why does it always feel like you are the one trying to make this happen? She is responding, she is showing up, she is even saying she likes you. But you are the one doing the work, you are the one checking in. You are the one moving things forward. And every time you pull back to see if she'll reach out first, the silence stretches until you break and text her again. Because the anxiety of losing her feels worse than the exhaustion of always being the one who chases. You can't tell if this is just how it works, or if you are doing something wrong. You can't tell if she is actually interested, or just bored enough to respond. And you definitely can't tell anyone else about this feeling, because they'll just call you insecure, or tell you to have an abundance mentality, or some other advice that sounds good, but doesn't change the fact that you are lying in bed at midnight, wondering why wanting someone has to feel this much like begging. This is about the oldest dynamic in the book: male chasing, female choosing. It shows up in every bar, every dating app, every situationship that leaves you feeling drained and confused. And before you can figure out how to navigate it, or whether you even should, you need to understand why it exists in the first place. Not the surface reasons, the deep ones, the ones nobody wants to say out loud. Here is what is really happening beneath all the games and tests and hot and cold behavior. Men are wired to pursue, because for most of human history, the men who didn't pursue didn't reproduce. The aggressive ones, the persistent ones, the ones who took rejection and came back anyway, those were the ones whose genetics survived. It is not about being a good person or a bad person. It is about the fact that passivity in men meant genetic extinction. So the drive to chase, to compete, to prove yourself worthy is baked into male psychology at a level most men don't even recognize. But it is not just about reproduction anymore. It is about validation. Every time a man pursues a woman and she chooses him, it confirms something deeper than just attraction. It confirms that he is enough, that he is valuable, that he won the competition against all the other men who wanted her. This is why men get so fixated on women who are hard to get. It is not that they enjoy the chase for its own sake. It is that winning someone who is selective feels like proof of worth in a way that winning someone who says yes to everyone never could. The problem starts when this need for validation becomes the entire point. When the chase becomes more important than the actual person you are chasing. You are not falling in love with her. You are falling in love with the idea of being chosen by her. What would it mean about you if she picked you? And she can feel that. Women can always feel when you want them more for what they represent than for who they actually are. On her side, the psychology is completely different, but equally deep. Women are choosing because the cost of choosing wrong is catastrophically higher. A man who sleeps with the wrong woman loses time and maybe some emotional energy. A woman who chooses the wrong man can end up pregnant, trapped, or dead. This isn't dramatics. This is human history. This is why women evolved to be selective, to test, to take their time, to watch how a man behaves under pressure before deciding whether he is safe to let in. But beyond the biological cost, there is an emotional one that runs just as deep. Women are hardwired to attune to other people's emotions because for thousands of years, their survival depended on reading the room, on knowing when the man was about to get violent, on sensing when the tribe was turning against them, on managing everyone else's feelings so they could stay safe. This means women grow up learning to be responsible for other people's emotional states, and that is exhausting. So when a man shows up needy, desperate, falling apart without her validation, she feels it like a weight, like one more person she is going to have to manage, like choosing him means signing up to be his emotional mother, not his partner. This is why the chase often kills attraction for women. Not because she is playing games or trying to be difficult, but because a man who chases too hard signals that he doesn't have his own emotional center, that his sense of self depends on whether she responds, that if she lets him in, she is going to be responsible for holding him together. And no woman wants that job, no matter how much she might like you in theory. The dynamic gets set in those first few interactions, and most people don't even realize the foundation they're building, He reaches out first because that is what men do. She waits to respond because responding too quickly makes her look too available, too easy, too desperate in a way that lowers her value in his eyes and hers. He interprets her delay as disinterest or a test, so he tries harder. She interprets his trying harder as neediness, so she pulls back more, and now they're locked in a dance where both people are responding to what they think the other person's behavior means, instead of what is actually happening. What he doesn't understand is that she is not pulling back to play games. She is pulling back because his energy feels suffocating, because the intensity of his interest doesn't match the reality of how long they've known each other, because somewhere in her gut, she senses that he is more in love with the idea of her than with the actual person she is, and that makes her feel like an object, like a prize, like if she says yes, he'll relax, and she'll discover that the man who was chasing her with flowers and consistent texts was just performing to win her, not showing her who he actually is. What she doesn't understand is that his pursuit isn't about objectifying her. It is about the fact that he has been socialized since childhood to believe that his value as a man is measured by his ability to achieve, to win, to earn things through effort. He is applying the same framework to relationships that he applies to everything else in life. Work hard, be consistent, show value, get results. He genuinely believes that if he just does enough of the right things, she'll see how serious he is and reward that effort with her commitment. He doesn't realize that attraction doesn't work like a job promotion, that you can't logic or effort your way into someone's heart, that sometimes trying harder is exactly what pushes her away. And here is the cruelest part of the whole dynamic. The men who succeed with women are usually the ones who don't chase. Not because they're playing games or following some pickup artist strategy, but because they're genuinely outcome independent. They like her, sure, but they don't need her. They have a full life that she would be added to, not a half life that she would complete. And women can feel that difference immediately. They can tell when a man is pursuing them because he is genuinely interested versus when a man is pursuing them because he is empty and hoping she'll fill the void. So the men who need it most get it least, and the men who need it least get it most. And nobody wants to say this out loud because it sounds cruel and unfair. But it is the truth. Desperation repels. Abundance attracts. Not because women are shallow or playing games, but because desperation signals that something is broken in you that you are expecting her to fix. And nobody wants to be someone's emotional life raft. Let's talk about what drives this on an even deeper level, beneath the evolutionary biology and the gender socialization. Let's talk about the wound that makes men chase and women withdraw. Most men grow up starved for affection, starved for emotional validation, starved for being seen as valuable outside of what they can achieve or produce or earn. Little boys learn early that crying is weakness, that needing comfort is shameful, that they have to be strong, independent, self-sufficient. So they learn to bury their emotional needs, to pretend they don't need connection the way they actually do. And then they hit puberty, and suddenly there is this one socially acceptable channel for getting emotional intimacy, romantic relationships with women. This is why men often make their romantic partner their entire emotional support system, why they don't have deep friendships where they talk about real things, why they can't articulate their feelings to anyone except the woman they're sleeping with, because that is the only relationship where it is allowed, where they can finally drop the mask and be vulnerable and ask for comfort without being seen as weak. But here is the problem. When a woman becomes your only source of emotional validation, you stop being her partner and start being her dependent. Your need for her becomes bottomless because you are not just asking her to love you, you are asking her to heal decades of emotional neglect and fill a void that was created long before she showed up. And she can feel that. She can feel the weight of being asked to be your therapist, your mother, your validation source, and your girlfriend all at once. And it is too much. Women have their own wound, and it is the opposite. Most women grow up being trained to prioritize everyone else's needs over their own, to be nice, to be agreeable, to smooth things over, to make other people comfortable even when they're uncomfortable themselves. They learn that their value comes from being chosen, from being desired, from being good enough to earn a man's commitment. So they spend their teenage years and 20s bending themselves into shapes, trying to be whatever they think men want. But underneath all that performance, there is this deep exhaustion, this resentment that they can't just be themselves, that they have to constantly monitor how they're coming across. That one wrong move, one moment of being too much or not enough, and they'll be replaced with someone easier, hotter, more agreeable. So by the time a woman has been through a few relationships, she is tired. She is tired of performing. She is tired of managing men's egos. She is tired of being responsible for everyone else's emotional state. This is why women test, why they pull back when you chase, why they create distance to see if you'll respect it or violate it. They're trying to figure out if you are another man who is going to require emotional labor and management, or if you are actually solid enough to stand on your own. They're trying to figure out if they can relax around you or if they're going to have to perform forever. So now you have two wounded people coming together. Him, desperate for emotional validation he never got and trying to earn it through pursuit. Her, exhausted from managing everyone else's emotions and trying to protect herself by staying in control of the pace. And both of them are operating from fear. He is afraid that if he doesn't chase, she'll lose interest. She is afraid that if she lets him get too close too fast, she'll get trapped with someone who needs her more than he loves her. He is afraid of being alone. She is afraid of being suffocated. He speeds up to try to lock her down before she realizes he is not good enough. She slows down to maintain space so she can breathe and think clearly. And neither of them is wrong. They're both protecting themselves in the only ways they know how. But their protection strategies are incompatible. The more he chases, the more she withdraws. The more she withdraws, the more he panics and chases harder. It is a spiral that ends with both people hurt and confused, wondering why something that felt so promising in the beginning turned into this exhausting push-pull that leaves everyone feeling empty. The real tragedy is that under different circumstances, they might have actually worked. If he had enough self-worth to pursue without needing constant reassurance, she might have felt safe enough to let him in. If she had enough trust to be vulnerable, without testing him constantly, he might have felt secure enough to relax and show up authentically. But they're both too wounded, too defended, too busy protecting themselves to actually risk being seen. And here is what nobody tells you about this pattern. It is not about finding the right person, it is about becoming the right person. A man who chases from a place of abundance instead of scarcity is a completely different animal than a man who chases from desperation. He is pursuing because he is genuinely interested, not because he needs her to complete him. And a woman who tests from a place of self-respect instead of fear is a completely different experience than a woman who tests to prove you are not good enough. She is filtering for compatibility, not trying to confirm her belief that all men are disappointing. But most people don't do the work to heal their wound before they start dating. They just bring their brokenness into relationship after relationship, hoping the right person will somehow fix it. And it never works, because you can't fix an internal wound with external validation. You can't earn your way into self-worth through someone else's approval. You can't protect yourself from heartbreak by never fully letting anyone in. Here is what the chase actually costs the man. It costs him his dignity, not all at once, but in small increments. Every time he texts first when he said he wouldn't. Every time he accepts behavior he said he'd never tolerate. Every time he makes himself smaller and more accommodating, hoping it'll make her like him more. Each of those moments chips away at his self-respect until he barely recognizes himself anymore. It costs him his peace. He can't focus on anything else because his entire emotional state is dependent on whether she is responding warmly or coldly. His mood swings based on her texting patterns. His self-esteem rises and falls based on whether she is available or distant. He has given her complete power over his emotional well-being, and she didn't even ask for it. She doesn't want it, but he keeps giving it to her anyway because he doesn't know how else to operate. It costs him his other relationships. His friends stop calling because he has flaked on them 3 times for a girl who probably won't even show up. His family doesn't understand why he is always distracted. His work suffers because he is checking his phone every 10 minutes. He has poured all his energy into one person who hasn't earned that level of investment yet. And now his whole life is unbalanced. Most devastatingly, it costs him his authenticity. He is so busy trying to be what he thinks she wants that he has lost track of who he actually is. He is performing a version of himself that is confident and mysterious and outcome-independent. But underneath, he is terrified and needy and falling apart, and the gap between the mask and the reality is exhausting. He can't maintain it forever. Eventually, the real him is going to leak out, and when it does, she is going to feel deceived. Not because he lied, but because the person she thought she was getting to know never actually existed. For the woman, the cost is different, but just as destructive. Staying in choosing mode keeps her from ever fully surrendering to connection. She has always got one foot out the door, always evaluating, always watching for red flags, always ready to pull back if he shows any sign of being too much or not enough. And that constant vigilance is exhausting. It is also lonely, because you can't deeply connect with someone you are constantly testing. It costs her the possibility of being surprised, of being pursued by someone who actually sees her, not just the image of her. When she is in control of the pace, she never has to risk vulnerability. She never has to show up messy or needy or uncertain. She can maintain the fantasy that she is the prize, the one being chosen, the one with all the power. But that fantasy protects her from real intimacy, which requires both people to be vulnerable, both people to take risks, both people to admit they don't have it all figured out. It costs her the kind of men who could actually meet her. Because the men with real options, real confidence, real self-worth, they don't chase women who make them jump through hoops. They're interested, they make their interest clear, and then they wait to see if it is mutual. If the woman starts playing games or testing or creating unnecessary obstacles, they just move on. Not because they're players or commitment, phobes, but because they've learned that people who make connection unnecessarily difficult are usually not ready for connection at all. So she ends up attracting two types of men: the desperate ones who will tolerate anything because they have no other options, and the manipulators who know how to play the game better than she does, who mirror her tests back at her until she is the one chasing. Neither of those is what she actually wants. What she wants is someone secure enough to pursue her without being needy about it, patient enough to give her space without disappearing, and strong enough to call her out when she is self-sabotaging. But men like that are rare, and they don't stick around for women who treat early dating like an obstacle course. The deepest cost for her is that she never learns how to choose from a place of genuine desire instead of fear. Her entire framework is built around avoiding bad options rather than identifying good ones. She is so focused on filtering out the wrong guys that she doesn't know what she is actually filtering for. And when someone good does show up, someone who is genuinely available and interested and emotionally healthy, she doesn't recognize it. Because healthy looks boring compared to the intensity of the chase. Secure feels flat compared to the highs and lows of chaos, and she mistakes that flatness for lack of chemistry, when really it is just lack of drama. The reason this dynamic is so hard to break is because both people are getting something from it, even though it hurts. He is getting the temporary relief of feeling like he is doing something, like he is in control, like if he just tries hard enough, he'll eventually win. The chase gives him purpose. It gives him a clear mission, and as long as he is chasing, he doesn't have to deal with the scarier question of what happens if he actually catches her. And she sees who he really is. She is getting validation without vulnerability. She gets to feel desired and pursued and valuable without having to risk rejection or show up authentically. She is in control of the pace, which means she is in control of how much she has to reveal and when. And as long as she is choosing, she doesn't have to deal with the scarier question of what happens if she lets someone in and they leave anyway. So they're both avoiding real intimacy while pretending they want it. They're both running from the same thing, just in opposite directions. And they keep ending up in these push-pull dynamics because that is the only kind of connection that lets them stay defended while feeling like they're trying. Breaking the pattern requires both people to do something terrifying. He has to stop chasing, not as a strategy to make her chase him, but as a genuine reclaiming of his self-respect. He has to be willing to walk away if she is not meeting him halfway. He has to build a life that is full enough that her absence doesn't create a void. He He has to learn to get his emotional needs met through friendships, therapy, hobbies, purpose, not just through romantic validation. She has to stop testing, not because tests are wrong, but because at some point you have to decide whether you trust someone or not. You can't keep one foot out the door forever and expect real connection to develop. She has to be willing to risk being vulnerable with someone who might hurt her. She has to learn that being chosen by a desperate man doesn't make her valuable, and that turning away secure men because they're too nice is just fear dressed up as standards. But here is the brutal truth. Most people don't break the pattern. They just keep repeating it with different people, wondering why they keep attracting the same dynamic. They blame the other person. They blame the gender. They blame dating apps or modern culture or whatever else lets them avoid looking at their own wound. The break point comes differently for everyone. Sometimes it is after the 10th time you've had the exact same fight about respect and availability and follow-through with someone who swears they care but never shows it consistently. Sometimes it is when you are lying in bed staring at the ceiling and you realize you can't remember the last time you felt genuinely peaceful. Sometimes it is when a friend gently points out that you've lost yourself and you can't even argue with them because you know it is true. For men, the break point often comes when the chase stops working, when he realizes that no amount of effort is going to change the fact that she is just not that into him. Or worse, when he finally wins her and discovers that the woman he gets is not the woman he was chasing, that the whole thing was a fantasy, that he was in love with the idea of her, the challenge of her, the validation of winning her. But the actual person is someone he doesn't even particularly like when the mask comes off. For women, the break point usually comes when she realizes that staying in control means staying alone, that all the men she is attracting are either too weak to set boundaries or too manipulative to be trusted, that she is so busy protecting herself that she has built a wall nobody can climb, and now she is on the other side wondering why she feels so isolated. Or it comes when she meets someone genuinely solid and realizes she is about to sabotage it with the same tests and games that have killed every other promising connection. Sometimes the break point is just exhaustion. You are tired of performing, tired of strategizing, tired of trying to decode every text and analyze every interaction like you are studying for a final exam, tired of the emotional whiplash, tired of feeling like you are always either winning or losing instead of just connecting. And in that exhaustion, there is a kind of clarity, a recognition that this isn't what you want, that this isn't what love is supposed to feel like. After it ends, there is this period where you are angry at yourself, angry that you stayed so long, angry that you ignored the signs, angry that you played the game instead of walking away. You look back at the text conversations and you can see it so clearly now, the pattern you couldn't see when you were in it. The way you kept accepting less than you deserved, the way you kept making excuses, the way you convinced yourself that if you just did things differently, the outcome would change. You want to reach back through time and shake yourself. Tell yourself to have some self-respect, to stop chasing someone who is running, to recognize that when someone wants you, you know it. You don't have to decode it. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to prove you are worth it. They just show up consistently and you can relax, but you can't go back. You can only move forward with the lesson. And the lesson isn't about the other person. It is about you. It is about what you tolerated because you didn't think you deserved better. It is about how you lost yourself because you didn't have a strong enough sense of self to hold on to. It is about how you tried to earn love instead of just being yourself and trusting that the right person would choose you anyway. Some people get stuck here. They swing too far in the other direction. Men decide all women are games and tests and manipulation, so they become manipulators themselves. They learn the strategies, the tactics, the ways to trigger chase in women while staying emotionally unavailable themselves. They become what hurt them. Women decide all men are weak or dangerous, so they build higher walls and stricter tests and convince themselves they're just being selective when really they're just scared. They become more defended, more controlling, more impossible to reach. But some people actually grow. They take the lesson without becoming bitter. They recognize their pattern and do the uncomfortable work of healing it. They build lives that are full enough that they don't need romantic validation to feel complete. They develop self-worth that isn't dependent on being chosen. They learn to recognize secure attachment and healthy reciprocity. They stop chasing and stop testing, and start just showing up authentically, trusting that the right match will reveal itself without all the performance. Here is the quiet truth that nobody wants to hear. The male chase and female choose dynamic only works when both people are coming from a healthy place. When he is pursuing because he is genuinely interested, not because he is desperate. When she is choosing because she is evaluating compatibility, not because she is protecting herself from intimacy. When both people have enough self-worth that they can walk away if it is not reciprocal. But most people aren't coming from a healthy place. They're coming from their wounds, from their scarcity, from their fear, and wounds can't heal wounds. Scarcity can't create abundance. Fear can't build trust. You don't need to become a different person. You don't need to follow some strategy or system or set of rules about who texts first or how long to wait before responding. You just need to heal the part of you that thinks you have to earn love. The part that believes your value is determined by whether someone chooses you. The part that is so scared of being alone that you'll tolerate being treated poorly just to feel like you belong to someone. When you do that work, when you genuinely build self-worth from the inside instead of trying to extract it from other people's validation, the whole dynamic changes. You stop chasing because you don't need to prove anything. You stop testing because you are not afraid of being vulnerable with the wrong person. You are just calmly evaluating whether this person is right for you. And when you meet someone else who has done that same work, there is no chase. There is no game. There is just two people being honest about what they want and seeing if it matches. That is the relationship that doesn't drain you. That doesn't require you to lose yourself or play defense or analyze every interaction. That just feels like relief, like coming home, like you can finally stop performing and just exist. And that is enough. Most people will never experience that because they're too busy chasing or choosing to actually see the person in front of them. They're too defended to risk being known, too wounded to trust, too scared to stop playing the game long enough to find out what real connection feels like. But you can be different. You can be the one who stops repeating the pattern, who does the work, who builds the life, who shows up whole instead of hoping someone else will complete you. You can be the one who walks away from the chase and the tests and the games, not because you are giving up on connection, but because you finally understand that real connection doesn't require any of that. And when you do, you'll look back at all of this, all the nights spent staring at your phone, all the energy wasted trying to decode mixed signals, all the heartbreak from people who were never really available. And you'll finally understand what it was all for. It was teaching you how to respect yourself, how to have boundaries, how to recognize your worth without needing someone else to validate it, how to walk away from anything that asks you to be less than you are just to be loved. That is the gift, not the person you were chasing or the person who chose you, but the person you became when you finally stopped playing the game and started building a life where you didn't need anyone to complete you, where being chosen was nice, but not necessary, where you could pursue someone from genuine interest instead of desperate need, where you could be vulnerable without being destroyed, where love was something you gave from overflow, not from emptiness. That is when you are ready, not for the perfect person, but for real connection with an imperfect person who has done their own work. And when you meet them, you'll know immediately because it won't feel like a test or a chase. It'll just feel like recognition. Like you can both finally stop running and just be still together. Like after all the games and all the pain and all the lessons, you finally learned what you were supposed to learn. You learned that you were enough the whole time.